Hello, good day. How are you today? You're good, right? Okay. Are you ready for today's lesson? You are? That is good. So, today in biology, we are going to be looking at pollination in plants. Okay. Our topic for today in biology is on pollination in plants. So, are we ready for the lesson? Okay, good. Pollination is a crucial process in the life cycle of plants, where pollen grains are transferred from the male reproductive organ to the female reproductive organ of a flower. This process is essential for the formation of seeds and the continuation of plant species. Do we understand that? Pollination in plants refers to the transfer of pollen from the male reproductive organ to the female reproductive organ within a flower. Okay? Do we get that? Pollination in plant means the movement of pollen from the male part of a flower to the female part, and this process is essential for plants to make seeds and reproduce. Okay, good. So we're going to be looking at the types of pollination. Types of pollination. There are two main types of pollination, okay? Self-pollination and cross-pollination. Self-pollination: pollen is transferred from the anther to the stigma of the same flower or another flower on the same plant. This type of pollination is common in some plants and ensures reproductivity success even when mates are scarce. Do we understand self-pollination? Self-pollination is the process where pollen from the male reproductive organ, which is the anther of a flower, is transferred to the female reproductive organ, which is the stigma of the same flower or another flower on the same plant. Okay? This process ensures the transfer of genetic material within the same plant. Do you understand that? Self-pollination is characterized by the plant's ability to reproduce independently even when mates are scarce. Okay? Do you get that? The pollen goes from one part of a flower to another part of the same flower or plant. It's like a plant pollinating itself. Do you get that? Good. Then the cross-pollination. What does it mean? Pollen is transferred from the anther of one flower to the stigma of different flower, often on another plant. This method promotes genetic diversity and can lead to stronger, more adaptable plant populations. Okay, so cross-pollination is the process where the pollen from the male reproductive organ, the anther, of one flower is transferred to the female reproductive organ, the stigma of a different flower, often on another plant, okay? And this promotes genetic diversity within plant populations, as it involves the mixing of genetic material from different individuals. Okay, do you understand? Cross-pollination is like plant matchmaking. Pollen from one flower gets carried to a different flower, usually on another plant. This mixing of pollen helps plants create diverse offspring, which is good for their overall health. It's like giving plants more options in their genetic pool, promoting adaptability and resilience. Okay? So it's just pollen moves from one flower to a different flower in another plant, and it helps plants mix their genes, promoting diversity. Do you understand? So the two types of pollination we have self-pollination and cross-pollination. Okay? These are the basic ways plants ensure they reproduce, either on their own or with a little help from others. So we're going to be looking at the agents of pollination. The agents of pollination are the things or organisms that help in the process of pollination. Okay? We have the insects, bees, butterflies, beetles, and other insects are often pollinators attracted to flowers by nectar and pollen. So insects are agents of pollination. They help in the process of pollination, okay? Bees, butterflies, beetles, and other insects, they visit flowers, transferring pollen as they collect nectar. Another agent of pollination, wind. Some plants, like grasses and many trees, rely on the wind to carry their pollen from one flower to another. Some plants rely on the wind to carry their lightweight pollen from one flower to another. So the wind is also an agent of pollination, okay? We also have birds as agents of pollination. Hummingbirds are an example of bird pollinators, attracted to brightly colored and tubular flowers. Birds are also agents of pollination. Birds like hummingbirds are attracted to certain flowers with tubular shapes and bright colors. They unintentionally transfer pollen while feeding on nectar. And the last agents of pollination we have animals. Larger animals such as bats and some mammals can also play a role in pollination. So some animals are pollinators, like bats. They may brush against flowers, transferring pollen in the process. Okay? So these are the agents of pollination: insects, wind, birds, animals. Okay? They help in the pollination process. Do you understand? Good. Next, we're going to be looking at characteristics of insects and wind-pollinated flowers. Characteristics of insects and wind-pollinated flowers. When we talk about the characteristics of insect and wind-pollinated flowers, we are describing the specific features and adaptations these flowers have developed for successful reproduction. Okay, so first we are going to be looking at insect pollinated flowers. What are the features, the characteristics? Bright colors. Flowers often have vibrant colors to attract insects. Bright colors. Flowers often display vibrant and attractive colors to catch the attention of insects. Okay, sweet scents. Emit sweet scents to lure insects. Flowers emit sweet scents, sweet fragrance to attract insects. Specific structures. Structures that aid in pollen transfer, like sticky pollen or features for attachment on insects. Possess structures like sticky pollen or features that aid in attachment to insects, facilitating effective pollen transfer. So these are the characteristics of insect-pollinated flowers. Okay, do you understand? Insect-pollinated flowers is about the flowers that use insects for their reproduction, okay? And these flowers have bright colors, sweet scents, specific structures. They have special features to make the insects carry the pollen to another flowers, helping the plants make seeds. Okay? So it's like the flowers are throwing a party and inviting insects to be their guests. Do you understand that? So insect-pollinated flowers are adapted to rely on the help of insects for successful pollination, ensuring the reproduction of the plant. Okay? Then the wind-pollinated flowers. Inconspicuous appearance. Flowers are often small and inconspicuous. Lack of bright colors and scents. Usually lack bright colors and strong scents since they don't need to attract animals. Abundant lightweight pollen. Produce a large amount of lightweight pollen easily carried by the wind. Wind-pollinated flowers are usually small and don't stand out much. They don't bother with bright colors or strong scents since the wind doesn't need these cues. These flowers have loads of lightweight pollen that the wind can easily carry around. Do we understand that? Wind-pollinated flowers are flowers that have adapted to be pollinated by the wind. These flowers don't rely on attracting animals, okay? Instead, they produce a lot of lightweight pollen that can be easily carried by the wind to reach other flowers. Do you understand? Wind-pollinated flowers have the characteristics of inconspicuous appearance, lack of bright colors and scents, abundant lightweight pollen. Okay? Their strategy is letting the wind do the work of transporting pollen to achieve successful reproduction without the need of attracting pollinators like insects. Okay? So it's like insect pollinated flowers throw a party to attract guests, while wind pollinated flowers just let the breeze do the work. Do you get that? Good. So today's lesson on pollination in plants, we understood everything, right? We looked at the meaning of pollination. We said pollination in plant is the movement of pollen from the male part of a flower to the female part, right? Then we looked at the types of pollination. We said there are two main types, self-pollination and cross-pollination. We looked at the agents of pollination. We mentioned insects, wind, birds, and animals. After that, lastly, we looked at characteristics of insect and wind-pollinated flowers. So we understood today's lesson on pollination in plants, right? Good. So next we're going to be looking at our assignment. I'm sure we're going to be able to do our assignment. Okay, that is good.